This is the Conservative American Message, hosted by the one, the only, Cam Lau. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2024, and you are listening to the 74th episode of this podcast. President Richard Nixon said, "Never let your head hang down, never give up and sit down and grieve, find another way, and don't pray when it rains if you don't pray when the sun shines." If you support what we're doing here at the Conservative American Message, please show your support by making a purchase in our merch store. Go to campodcast.square.site or just click the link in the description of this episode. If you want to still support the podcast but for free, give us a 5-star rating and follow or subscribe wherever you listen. To stay up to date with everything we've got going on, follow us on social media at the Conservative American Message on Instagram and Facebook. I've been working to get more guests on the show for you guys because, frankly, they usually have something better to say than just listening to my political ranting all the time. I get requests from people all the time, but with my crazy schedule and family, I can't always accept everybody. So it'd be super helpful for you guys to message us on social media and let us know who or what you want to hear on the show. That way I can try to reach out to people that you're actually interested in hearing from, and it helps me prioritize which guests to bring on. I am hoping to get a lot of candidates leading up to the election in November. Now, over the last few days, I've been bombarded with questions from you guys about Trump. Can he still run? Is he going to jail? Is he really guilty? You know, we've been through this trial so many times on this show, and I kept telling you guys that there's no possible way that Trump could be found guilty. And I was wrong. I was shocked when they announced the verdict. It is just so unreasonable to think that a former/future president could be so blatantly harassed by the justice system. There is no justice in this system, so it cannot even be afforded that name any longer. Here on out, it is the injustice system. The first president in American history to be convicted of a felony. So yes, Trump lost his trial with Stormy Daniels. The jury found him guilty of falsifying business records. He's not guilty of having an affair with Stormy Daniels, which I don't believe he did. He's not even guilty of having paid her to keep it quiet. What crime he's guilty of is falsifying business records, because his business records do not disclose any such payment to her, even though she claims she received one. So rather than assume that Trump's business records were actually legit, they took instead the word of a porn star and a disgruntled employee who embezzled money from the Trump organization. Of course, this case was brought by a prosecutor who ran for office on the sole issue of convicting Trump, when they had no specific crime in mind at the time. The entire DA's office in New York has been using every expendable resource of taxpayer dollars to bring the maximum number of cases they can against him on the most ridiculous grounds imaginable. Meanwhile, the city's crime has grown exponentially, and violent lawbreakers are released with no bail. The judge was clearly against Trump. He made a $35 donation to the Biden campaign in 2020. You might be saying, Cam, $35, it's like nothing. Is it really that big of a deal? And I think it's actually worse than if he had donated a large amount. Large donors are typically people who are interested in a little quid pro quo. They expect something in return, at the least that their personal interests will be taken into consideration. But a piddly little $35, that means that he is a legitimate, believing Biden supporter who knows his donation doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but he wants to feel like he did his part in helping to elect Biden. A true Biden supporter like this makes an even more biased judge than someone who's just trying to gain some favor with a politician. You've heard it said, this was a total kangaroo court. There is nothing legitimate or fair whatsoever with this case. The most blatantly, politically motivated abuse of power in the history of this country, and I really mean that. Even more disgusting, they are postponing the sentencing hearing until just days before the Republican National Convention in July. They'll do anything to try and divide the Republican Party, but I believe their efforts are in vain. Not one person has changed their mind about Trump based on this verdict. Not a one. This verdict will be appealed and it will be overturned. Trump will still be the Republican nominee, and he will win the presidency in November. But November isn't the only election we have to worry about, guys. In fact, a far more important one takes place tomorrow, Tuesday, June 4th. Tomorrow is the Republican primary in Iowa. This is the election that decides which Republicans are going to appear on the ballot in November. I will remind our listeners that I fully endorse Kevin Virgil in Iowa's 4th Congressional District. Kevin has been on the podcast before, so if you want to know more about his whole campaign, just check out that episode. But whoever you support, please just vote tomorrow. This matters. Make your voice heard and let's get some decent people on the ballot, please. But that's all I have time for this week, guys. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.